Be strong and courageous.
Anywhere you see a gap between what you think might be possible and what is, that's an opportunity for an entrepreneur to dive in.
There are ways to succeed. There are models in entrepreneurship, investing. There are people who have found a path before.
To dream about like what are the talents that you have and what are the things that make you come alive.
That there's actually a generation of warrior entrepreneurs, people that are willing to stand up, to do the hard work, to start a thing, to see a thing through.
Here's our mission, and we're going to take a step forward, just one foot in front of the other, and we're going to build something great.
We can make a difference. Let's do this in our lifetime. Let's see how much positive change we can drive. Well, welcome to another episode of Take Your Mountain Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weimer, and we have the pleasure to have my dad in here for session 2, sharing a little bit more of our story, how we got to where we're at today. So welcome again, Dad.
All right.
Well, today we wanted to dive in a little bit more. We spent a little bit more time on my dad's past, his history, kind of how he thought about purpose and work and how he found the blend together. Today, we wanted to dive into a little bit more on the nuts and bolts of our investing, our business partnership, ultimately what became a partnership together, and kind of where we started, leading into where we got today, talking about the errors, the mistakes, the different things, and also the successes we've had. So,
yeah,
I thought a good place for me to start is kind of maybe share, going back to even high school with your Oppenheimer fund advisor, maybe share a little bit about your experience investing early on.
Yeah, when you're talking about when you were in high school.
My high school. Okay.
Yeah,
the 90s for reference.
Most of my career, I didn't have much money to worry about, so I just had my 401k and
kind of normal.
Did all the normal.
Did your
the normal
3%
stuff.
or 4%,
yeah,
or whatever the heck it was.
And I invested in, they would have these funds, the 2030 fund or whatever.
So even back then they had the time frame funds.
Yeah. And so I did that type of thing for a number of years. And but at some point we had a liquidity event. I think I mentioned in the first podcast, we had a couple of different events where I did receive some extraordinary money from.
Yeah, for us.
And so at that point I was just looking at, what do I do with this? And one of the things, we were able to arrange my 401k where I could control where the money was being allocated. And so I was able to move, my, basically most of my 401k to a stockbroker. And we chose, I won't mention names, but we chose a stockbroker in New York. A guy contacted me because he saw that I was one of the principals in this business, and I was mentioned in the SEC filings.
This is like a little bit later, but like in high school, can you describe, when I was in high school, before some of this stuff, what was your performance like? This was like during the roaring 90s, right? Like the 95 to 99 for reference.
Before I did, I really didn't even pay attention.
Okay.
So
it's like money in there.
I'm an engineer. I really, it was like, investing was not something that I found interesting or fun or whatever. And so I did something that I thought was good, and it was suggested that you do this.
Well, it's funny. Well, maybe I remember it a little bit more different. I was just a high school at the time, but I just remember, you open up your statement and kind of like this, if the market was up at the time, 11, 15, 22%, it seemed like that it wasn't an area that you were feeling victorious in. That was the general thing I got. And knowing a little bit now, if you really were in the 2030 fund or whatever it was, what ends up happening is they'll put you into some stocks. So you would get some participation in all that growth, but then they inevitably put in some bonds or some other thing. and that tends to bring the weighted average
Well,
down.
it dumbs down the portfolio. You are protected from
volatility.
from the volatility of being in the market, like S&P 500, and so the highs of the market, you don't get those highs, and the lows, you don't get those lows either. But
I was going to say, it seemed like you lagged the highs, but when the whole thing took a dump in 2000, 2001, you matched those pretty well, right?
Well, and a lot of that was true. You tended to definitely not get the highs and the low. When you had a serious, negative event, you experienced a good portion of that.
Yeah.
And so it was frustrating, but I personally just
also on the back burner.
Yeah, I didn't put much effort
focused
into it.
on your day to day. And so, fast forward a little bit. You had an employee stock ownership plan. So you had a sliver of the company. Company was bought by private equity. So then they were taken public. Then eventually they were bought by a larger company. So there was a couple of liquidity events in there, right? Where you had to.
Yeah, and I was also given an opportunity to purchase stock in the company. So I had some stock in ESOP and some stock that I was able to purchase myself.
So you're able to invest in basically the vehicle that you were working for, which is unique, and it was a high growth vehicle, and that started to pay off. Giving a first indication that in order to outperform, you needed to concentrate a little bit in a private asset, what it ended up being. But as you started to have liquidity for the first time, can you walk us through kind of your thought process on you went from basically being a very passive, hey, I'm going to paint by the numbers, follow the rules, put this aside, to actually having some meaningful amount of money and having to figure out what to do with it?
Yeah, previously I wasn't that concerned about it because it wasn't a lot.
It wasn't very much money.
It wasn't very much money, and at a point there, it was definitely quite a bit of money, certainly in my world, and I felt like initially when it first happened, my 401k did not allow you to take your money out and use it.
Sure, it's like it's captive until you have some sort of restructure of the legal entity.
That's right. And they actually changed the rules. They went through the process of changing the rules so that I could then have the freedom to put it into a trading account and control it myself.
Probably was a rollover to an IRA or something.
No, it actually
still was in the 401k? This doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it allowed you to move it to the trading account, which it was still planned money.
Okay.
It was a 401. It was a trading account that is a planned money, but I was able to then allow it to be controlled by. I decided, I was contacted by a stockbroker on New York.
Well, actually, before you go there, I want to hear some of the private deals you did. That was a little bit after that, but so you had some money.
Well, yeah. As soon as I the SEC filings for our company, as soon as those things were published publicly, I got contacted by people who were
immediately
looking to raise money.
There's a traditional guy that contact you from you call them your Wall Street broker, but there's also these private broker dealers,
right?
That have kind of one-off deals. Maybe just pick one example and share kind of your experience.
Yeah, one of them was a product for security at your home, and they were trying to take, the model of the big companies that come out and give you an expensive system that they charge you monthly for, and they were making a product that would sit in your house, and it would also contact a calling place and alert people and call the police automatically and so forth. But
so it's kind of a tech play going off of traditional security services, modernizing it using modern technology, a cheap device you could bring in your house.
Right.
but still a subscription.
Right.
Model.
And this was a startup, and so
Yep.
it was, it seemed like, I'm a technology guy. I felt like the product and the person who was the president of that company was very entrepreneurial and everything. And so
Had the credentials, had the
and they
resume.
had made a lot of progress and done a lot of good things. And so I felt like, okay, this is good. And I actually invested $100,000 in
It's
this
a lot.
thing.
It's all relative.
Which-
But that was a lot.
That was a good chunk of money. And it was a definite learning experience, because over the course of the next few years, the company basically went defunct.
Mm-hmm.
And so every dollar I put in, I lost. So
I remember I was actually just getting out of college about that time, and I'm not just casually interested. You were largely making these decisions, and I'm just observing and learning. One of the things I learned with these private deals is there's never a single private deal that doesn't look good on paper, right? You got some spreadsheet artist that comes in and it's the hockey stick grow. I mean, I haven't seen a single pitch that doesn't have that hockey. Oh, if we only did X, Y, Z. And it's very impressive. It's easy to look at the material and be like, wow, how could anyone possibly put all this time and effort into this endeavor and have it not, have a really good chance
right.
of success?